Hello there, welcome back. Today I'm going to talk about Avatar The Last Airbender, which is a TV show, but I'm also going to talk about the terrible film. So don't worry, I'm going to get to the film too. Now this is one of the things I've been doing during a little break, is watching the Avatar TV series. I started watching it with my nephew. He ended up watching the rest of himself and never told me he was watching the rest of himself, and so now I end up catching up with him on my own. And it's a wonderful series. It's one of those things, it's aimed for children, but it's so well done, adults can watch and enjoy it too, because it's a good story. And it's got good characters, and it's so well animated, and the story from season to season develops, so every season is different. Every season the characters develop and have different themes. So the characters in season 1 are different from where they become in season 2 and where they go in season 3. I mean, there's character points that remain the same, but their experiences change them as they go, and that's wonderful to show children, to show this is what a story can be, rather than just, oh, it's just another episode. I mean, there are some filler episodes because there's a narrative that goes through it, but every so often you have to stop. See, every episode cannot be a game changer. There's like 2 or 3 game changers per season, and the rest of the episodes either them dealing with what's happened or building to what's going to happen. But there are stories in between that actually gives you more character details as well. So it's a really well paced series. Now that's something a lot of TV shows try and do, but most of them don't do it as well as Avatar Last Airbender, because in this one, because animated, it's like I think they've time to, they've got a good writing staff, they've got time to like plan it all out, like A goes to B to go to C, and they just slowly build high, low, then up to now high. So they've planned it out, and then they fill in those stories, and I think they must do some decent rewriting to make sure the stories all kind of work together in a way that I think sometimes in TV shows they're given away to other directors, they go outside and shoot something, they come back, and sometimes it comes out different and wrong. And this one, I think, because it's animation, they can adapt things and pull things back, and you know, it's not that every episode is brilliant, but most of them are really well done, and even the ones which are not the best in the series are still really enjoyable. So I mean, even the weakest episodes in this series is good. You're not going to look at it and go, oh god, this one. It's like, they're all good, it's just there are some that are better. I mean, the one that I was told is the worst episode ever was called The Great Divide. I still really enjoyed it, so even though it was a very kind of one-note story, it was still done pretty well. so I mean, it's one of those ones that is the worst episode of this show is still pretty good. But basically the story is Aang, the last Airbender. The Airbenders can manipulate air. The Firebenders can manipulate fire. The Earthbenders can manipulate the earth, you know, and the Waterbenders can manipulate water. There's an avatar that's born every generation that can manipulate all of those elements, that can bring them together and help the societies get along and be peaceful with each other. Unfortunately, at a certain point, the Airbender that was reborn, the Avatar was reborn. Once one dies, another one is reborn in another body, and so they find a new Avatar and then let them develop and master all the elements again, and he can visit his own older life to try and learn from his mistakes in the past lives. But it can be he or she, it changes gender as well. And this one, because he came into being during a time of potential war, he gets scared and ran away and ended up being lost in ice for 100 years. So during that time, the firebending area of the world got out of control. It started to become like power hungry and starts to try and take over all the other areas. So it's destroyed like half the waterbending places, and it's attacking earthbenders. The airbenders have been wiped out. So it's been really destructive. So Aang comes back, is found by these two waterbender and a brother under the ocean, and they manage to get him out of the ice, and he has to, at that point, he has to find a way to bring back the four societies back together. And that's the main thrust of the story. And by doing that, to do that, he first has to learn all the other bending techniques, because he can only do air bending. So he has to learn how to water bend, he has to learn how to earth bend and fire bend. He has to learn from masters how to do this. And and that's difficult to find him, the proper master who can give him the information he needs and give him the stability to actually learn it the proper way. And that's the main thrust of what he has to do. But he's getting chased the whole time by the firebenders, because they do not want him to learn all his techniques, because he can be a threat to them at that point. So they try to kill him throughout this whole time. So they send out various people. The main one is, at the start, is Zuko, who's the prince. He's the dishonoured son of the king, who was dishonoured for actually suggesting the firebenders should be more humane. The only way he can get his honour back is to find the Avatar. So for the first season, he's tried hunting the Avatar. And then it continues on beyond that, because at some point, the good thing with this show is people learn from their mistakes, but they learn slowly. Like, they don't learn like, oh, I made a mistake, I will get better now. It's like, I made a mistake, how do I learn from that? And then they make variations of that mistake a few more times before they actually learn from their mistake. Because they have to try and work out, not just they made the mistake, it's like, how do you course correct in a way that you're not going to fall back into that bad habit. And all the characters have that problem. I mean, it's not just Zuko who has to learn that maybe hunting down the Avatar is a bad idea. To learn how to do all these, to learn all the different crafts, Aang has to make a lot of mistakes. And these mistakes build on him, so it causes him problems about how to learn, because he's got the trauma of bad mistakes he's made early on. So he has to get beyond his problems. His two companions at the start are Katara, which is this girl who's a waterbender, but she has barely learned anything. She knows only the basics. And her brother Sokka, who's like the goofball. As they go on, they start to see each other's strengths. Like, Katara's actually a very good waterbender. Once she's learned the basics, and has been taught the basics, she becomes Aang's. Once Aang gets the basic techniques from some waterbenders, because she's a quicker learner, she's the one who teaches him throughout the rest of the series how to waterbend and get better and better at it. So she learns responsibilities, even though she's like 15, 16, Aang's like 13. Her brother Sokka is a goofball who starts off being the idiot. It's like, they're stuck with him, he's helping them, but he's always in the way. But as he develops, he finds out that he's actually a very good tactician. He's actually smarter than he looks, and he's smarter than he thought he was. Because he's forced into these situations, he learns how to plan ahead, how to see what the problem is, and what are the possible solutions. So there's a lot of character growth for him, but it takes him a long time to actually accept that he actually is good at that stuff, because he just thinks he's useless. So he's got a lot of self-esteem issues, and he's too impulsive, but he slowly gets to learn that, and that's really one of the good threads. And you see him, he doesn't lose the humour, but you see him actually figuring it out. They have another character, the blind bandit that comes in the second season, who's the earthbender, who touches Aang to earthbend, because she's like a girl of 13, 14, she's like blind because of, she can't see, she used her senses around the earth to actually be able to see properly. Because she can feel people's movements, so she can see where they're coming, and so it becomes a sort of sight. So she teaches Aang how to earthbend. And she's her own problems, like she's a rebellious kid who ran away from her parents, and she's so impulsive, she's always trying to rebel against everybody, so she has to learn how not to rebel so much. So that becomes the main group. Those four become the main group, and they're getting chased by certain people. Basically the firebenders are always chasing them. They have to deal with the politics of the earthbenders, the politics of the waterbenders. Aang has to deal with the guilt of he's the last of the airbenders. And the story continues as they have to find ways to fight back against their firebenders, who are the most powerful. And although the soldiers can firebend, so it's not just the leaders who can do it, it's the soldiers too. so they have to learn how to survive against these people. And you've also got the second track, which is Zuko. Zuko is as important as Aang in the story, but it takes a while for you to them to kind of, it's always there, but as the story goes on, he becomes far more important because he has to learn to deal with his failures and realise that he's on the wrong side. But he makes lots of mistakes on the way there. He fails for like 2/3 of the show. You know, he doesn't learn to make. He kind of learns as he goes along, but he's fighting a lot of trauma because he's basically a sensitive kid who was traumatized as a child. He lost his mother, and his father and his sister were total psychos, and he has to try and live up to what they want from him. And he's just totally destroyed as a person, so he has to try and bring himself back together. He's got an uncle who should have been the Fire Lord, but he was deposed, and his uncle's tried to teach him another way of being, which is not to go for the power, to try and find existence beyond power. And Zuko starts to appreciate it as he goes on. The first season, his uncle annoys him, but between the second season starts to come around, he starts to see there's some wisdom. And as the second season goes on, he starts to really, because at that point him and the uncle had been disowned by the Fire Nation, and they get hunted down as well. And he starts to see what the like the wisdom of his uncle, and try and find a way to actually, so he starts to become affectionate towards his uncle and actually wants to prove himself. But even then he starts to make a lot of bad mistakes. I mean, he backslides a lot. He finds it very difficult because he's got his own identity, but he's also got his identity of his people, which are in conflict. So he has the kind of, although Aang's like the central character who's going to solve the main problem, the kind of emotional heft of the story is with Zuko, because he's the one with the most complicated character, and he has to learn through difficult mistakes and difficult situations, he has to learn how to be himself. And they do it wonderfully because they really play around the idea that he will backslide, he will make mistakes. This is not an easy process just to change 180 degrees from what you were, whatever stage you asked, to be something else. And that's the most difficult part of the film, of the story. And they give it the time it needs. So by the time he eventually switches sides, spoilers, he switches sides, but you can tell that's where he's going the whole story. They make it work because you've actually seen him. It actually feels like it's been earned. And as the story goes on, he becomes actually in some ways more dominant than Aang as the character who pushes the story forward. He's the kind of dominant dramatic arc for the story. Okay, so that's the dramatic elements. There are other characters like Zuko's sister, who's crazy, but she's got her own team of fighters that go after them. There's a Fire Lord who's built up very carefully to be this threat that's always it's going to be like developing throughout the whole story. And there are some great action scenes. I mean, one of the directors of the first season was Dave Filoni, who went on to do Clone Wars, the Star Wars series, which was terrific. And he really is good with action, and he really brought a level of action that after he left, they built upon, and they saw, oh, that's how you do this, so they did it even better. And there's a lot of good people on directing this, so that each series, like each episode, as well as having good action and good charm and good character moments, the characters were expressive. You got a lot of character from little details. They really cared about those little details within the characterization, and like how they would walk through a room, or how they would see someone, how they look at somebody. And sometimes it would be the look of the character within the frame, sometimes it would be how you would see their view of a character, and it might be a bit more cartoonish, but you get the intent of the scene. It's wonderfully done. And it was very light-hearted in a way, because they had the depth of the story as a base, so it gave them an excuse to light up when they weren't having the stronger character moments, to actually have some humour, just to keep it varied and keep the story working for you, so you can always have fun with the story, even within the darker elements. Even within some of the darker stories, there were some humorous stuff and some nice funny moments before the next story started. And there's some wonderful set pieces, like there's a bit where they have to destroy this drill that's come towards this big massive wall. And it's like four people on a mission try to get into this drill and try and destroy it from the inside. There's some wonderful scenes. The final battle, the final episode, actually to me is actually one of the weakest things of this whole series was there was maybe a bit too much action because it had to pay off so much that it was like a bit bigger than the characters needed to be. But it still worked fine. Because after the action was over, you got the character stuff, and that was more satisfying. But I mean, you tell there's influences. I mean, even though I said some of that was a bit too big, it was still so imaginative you didn't care. It was like, yeah, could have cut down a little bit less, but some of the scenes you're doing are really wonderful. So and everybody got their moment to shine and to develop even through the action. And a lot of character stuff comes through action. Like, people learn stuff during the action scene, so it's not just empty action. So it's a wonderful series. And just the details of the world, it's always filled out. And it's always influenced by certain things. There's like spaghetti western influences. There's obviously influenced by Star Wars original trilogy. Like lots of elements like the Zuko has an element of Darth Vader earlier on, but it becomes more kind of an Anakin figure. But done really well. There's Aang is a kind of Luke Skywalker thing, but very easterny and bald and things, so and a lot less whiny. There's like builds toward like the second season ends in a cliffhanger where everything goes to hell, just like Empire Strikes Back. There's lots of wonderful moments. There's lots of details that really make you think of Star Wars, but there's also tons of details that make you think of other stuff too, because it's very influenced by the East. It's very influenced by the whole world. It's just got that basic Star Wars influence too, you can see, but it's not an unlazy way which you get in a lot of other films or TV shows. This feels like it's earned. So the Avatar The Last Airbender is amazing. It's the best thing with the word Avatar in it by a mile, and it's just wonderfully done. The film, less so. But the film, I'm not going to slam the film as much as a lot of the people who love Avatar The Last Airbender do, mainly because it's not a good film. It's a bad film. The acting's atrocious. The acting is really bad. The storytelling is exposition. It's way too short. I mean, it's an hour and a half long or something, and it feels like it needed to be 2 hours 20. If it stuck to its basic plot and added character stuff in there, it might have had a chance. But they cut all the character stuff and just left you with all this exposition, and it was just. I've watched this twice because I watched it years ago before I ever saw the show, and I watched it again for this video. I saw it in 3D this time, and the 3D is meant to be really bad, but I saw it on TV in 3D and it was fine. But it's just a gimmick. But it helps you see certain things within the film that actually are quite decent. Like the production design is decent. I mean, the production design is they're trying to bring a cartoon world that's kind of cartoony but based on like a hyperbolic version of different cultures, and try to bring it back down to earth. And a lot of it is really well done. You can tell there's a lot of detail in the way things have been built, the way things have been designed. A lot of work went into that. That's really well done. Unfortunately, it's shot to look like a set. So no matter how much they do to it, it feels like a set. And that kind of so some of it, I think the problem is the way it's been shot, because sometimes it's like you could have spent a bit more time and shot that to make it look less like a set, because there's a lot of good detail in there that you have lost because of bad lighting. There's too much bad CGI as well. Every time the water bend, the water never looks right. That does not help. Yeah, there's dumb stuff that's been acknowledged, like the imprisoned airbenders in an environment where there's lots of earth. So, the imprisoned earthbenders in an environment with lots of earth. So why can't they just fight back? There's stuff like that that's there throughout. That's like, you should have thought this out more. But maybe the costume is great. The costumes all look nice. It's based on what you saw on the show, but it's done very naturalistic. It's done really nicely. There's a lot of detail. There's little seconds of nice bits. Like there's a bit where Aang goes back to the Airbenders and sees these skeletons, and then he gives these flash skeletons throughout the film as well as he thinks back to it. That's well done. There's a lot of stuff that's well done. But I mean, one of the things they should have done straight away was A, recast it, and B, cut out most of the dialogue. Because most dialogue you don't need. You could have figured most of it out without dialogue. But it's really badly cast. I mean, that's the worst thing about it is, usually when I complain about this, when I see the film music, it's like, well, we could have cast a different part. It's not too bad. This time, yeah, it should have been recast. This one is badly cast. I mean, all the nationalities are all wrong. Like, Aang was meant to be a kind of Tibetan, is the Airbenders are meant to be Tibetan, that kind of thing. And it was a cheerful Tibetan character, and that worked in the TV show, and he's like, how can that not work in a film? That just seems right. So he's this white guy, this dull white guy who pouts a lot and isn't that interesting, so it's, your lead character's boring. Well, what he does, he's boring, he's very solemn, and there's no humour to him. And the character of Aang's a lot of humour, despite being this chosen one character. He's lots of humour and he's a lot of doubt. And he's kind of cartoony and he's silly. Those two things go against each other in interesting ways. Because it shows you how mature he was and how not ready he is for this. And you lose that in this film, and it makes you realise your lead character is non-existent in the film. And that's a problem. Because you're not paying attention when he's on screen. It's like I'm not even paying attention to half the storytelling because this lead character's so dull. Then you got the waterbenders who are meant to be basically Inuits. They're meant to be from the North Pole to South Pole. They're meant to have a kind of Indian Inuit thing, and these are white people. And it's like, huh? It just doesn't make sense, and it's like one of those things you're thinking, this is offensively bad. They do not look like they belong there. That's terrible. And again, it's like, it was a story where the story itself was the main star, so you could have cast the way some of Star Wars was cast. Star Wars was cast with big names as the supporting characters, but had new people in the main parts. And this is a story like that, where you could have brought new people in. You could have brought actors from different cultures who you weren't used to seeing, and it would have worked the story, and it would have told you so much of the worlds without you having to have tons of exposition. It would have covered so much that instead you get exposition of stuff you listen to and going, I'm bored. So you have to spend all this exposition time being told somebody you know characters. So you don't like the characters. Like Sokka is meant to be funny and smart, and this one he's just this dull monotone guy. Katara's barely there. She's meant to be the heart of the show. In this film, she's barely there. She waterbends but twice, and she whines a lot. And which is not the film, not the character. The character's the one, she's meant to be the bossy thing that pushes them all forward. And this one, she's not, and it's like, this is boring. So the three characters you don't like, and in the TV show, they're really likeable. The film does better with the villains, kind of, like the uncle and Zuko are cast decently. Like the actors do their job there, they try their best, they're the best part of the film by a mile. They're the only human characters in the film. And even then, we can tell they're getting kept back by the direction. The direction's really killing them. But they're trying. They're the only time, any time they appear, it's like, oh thank God. At least there's something here that I can actually pay attention to. It should have just been about them, because they're the only things there that's interesting. All the other spawn characters are boring. The villains are like Indians when they're meant to be Japanese. You know, it's like, the Fire Nation was meant to be Japanese, it's designed as Japanese culture. And they make them Indians. So the good guys are white and the bad guys are Indians. And it's made by an Indian director. And it's like, what the hell is going on here? Is this like self-hatred or something? I don't know, it's weird. So the whole film is a mess. But it's one of those messes that I kind of like. It's kind of like the David Lynch Dune mess. Or, you know, that kind of thing. It's like a mess that's unwatchable. I mean, Shyamalan has made a career of messes, right? But there's a good Shyamalan messes and the bad ones. And this one's one of the good ones, like On Par with The Happening or The Village, which are messes that are enjoyable to rewatch because they're so weird and wrong and funny as hell. Everything's wrong about them, but they're enjoyable. They're not like something After Earth or Lady in the Water, which are just drudges. They're terrible films, but there's no fun to be had from laughing at them. This is much more of a, this is funny because it's, some of the line readings are so bad and some of the CGI is so bad and the last 20 minutes is incomprehensible. There's lots of stuff happening. They made total sense in the show because they had an hour to tell the story. And here it's like 20 minutes and it's like, what? So, like stuff they needed to do a lot of set up, a lot of atmosphere, set it up. Yeah, it's like 2 minutes. So, but the thing is, it doesn't matter because the show's there, the show's wonderful, the show is terrific. So I definitely recommend watch the show, just watch it, enjoy it. And then if you feel like a laugh at incompetence, you watch the film too, because the film's funny in how bad it is. It's so bad it's embarrassing, it's funny to watch that, so I'd recommend that too. But I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll be back soon with another one, but this is The Last Airbender. Right, goodbye.